The following podcast is non-profit and is based on the IGCSE history curriculum. Welcome to another episode of my podcast. In this episode, I will discuss why there was an Islamic Revolution in Iran in 1979. First, let's start with why was Muhammad Mossadeq overthrown. Firstly, who was Muhammad Mossadeq, and why did he want to nationalize the Anglo-Iranian oil company? The wealth needed to build Iran was leaving the country, as the oil was being taken by Britain, as it owned the Anglo-Iranian oil company. Secondly, what actions did the British take after the company was nationalized in 1951? They took Iran to the World Court and tried to hit Iran's economy by blocking the Gulf and halting trade, and they also tried to persuade the US to assist with changing the regime. What was Operation Ajax? The CIA was sent to engineer it. It resulted in Iran's monarch, the Shah, returning to power. Fourthly, who did the British and American intelligence services replace Mossadeq with? This would be the Shah, as mentioned, Iran's monarch. Now, what factors led to the Iranian Revolution? One factor was the hatred of the Shah's rule. Firstly, this is because the Shah ruled over Iran in an authoritarian way. He closed down the Iranian parliament in 1953 and banned many popular political parties. Iran was effectively a one-party state. Secondly, on the 8th of September 1978, the Shah's police opened fire on protesters in Tehran, killing around 100 people. This became known as Black Friday. Thirdly, during 1978, there were huge demonstrations against the Shah. The police and army broke these up and martial law was introduced. Another reason is that the Shah lived an extremely extravagant lifestyle. In 1971, he spent $330 million on celebrations for the 2500th anniversary of the Persian monarchy. Finally, the Shah used his secret police force, Savak, to arrest, imprison and torture anyone who criticized him. This created a climate of fear and repression. The second factor is the role of mullahs and Ayatollah Khamenei. Firstly, Muslim religious leaders, mullahs, criticized the Shah and his corrupt role during Friday prayers at mosques. One of the most popular was Ayatollah Khamenei. Ayatollah Khamenei was sent into exile for criticizing the Shah. However, his writings and recordings of his speeches continued to be smuggled into Iran. He was very charismatic and clever, and persuaded moderates and liberals to support his Islamic Revolution by focusing on criticisms of the Shah rather than his desire to set up an Islamic state. Many mullahs were also banned from preaching, and the most radical were arrested and imprisoned by Savak. The third factor I'm going to discuss is economic inequality in Iran. One reason is that although the Shah used some of the profits from oil to improve education and infrastructure, there was still a big gap between the rich and the poor of Iran, with the Shah living a very luxurious life himself. Secondly, many Iranians had a low standard of living. Most villages did not have piped water, electricity, or adequate roads, as most of the government's oil wealth was spent on the Iranian military. Now, onto the fourth factor, dislike of Western influence. One reason related to this factor is that the Shah passed a law protecting American businesses and business advisors living in Iran from being prosecuted for crimes. Many Iranians disliked this law, believing that it gave favorable treatment to the Shah's Western allies. Another reason is that Ayatollah Khamenei made influential speeches urging Iranians to reject Western culture, which he believed was un-Islamic. Thirdly, a group of Western oil companies agreed a deal with the Shah in which they would restart production for a 40% share of oil profits. Many Iranians hated that much of Iran's oil wealth was being taken by the West. Additionally, some of the foreign films shown in Iranian cinemas had scenes of a sexual nature which offended many Muslims. Furthermore, the Shah had a close relationship with the West, as he signed trade treaties with them and joined an anti-Soviet alliance, CENTO, in 1955. I have also written an answer to a 10-mark question titled "Economic Factors Were the Main Cause of the Iranian Revolution of 1979. How far do you agree with this statement? Which you can read by visiting my website, which is linked in the description. This is the end of the podcast. Thank you for listening. Please consider using the links in the description below to leave a voice message for me, leave feedback for me, or visit my website which hosts additional revision material. Depending on which app you are listening to this on, you could also rate and review the podcast. Thank you.